Assalamu alaikum. Can I get a cup?
Mamoun, is the TV on there? Mamoun?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
No, I'll just take one. Yeah.
You don't have tissue for the bathroom.
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah,
this-
so I'm honestly just a guest here. I have no idea.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Where's their thing room?
The supplies room. Do they have a supplies room?
Bismillah.
This is,
Oh no, just press live. Press this button live right there. There you go.
Zoom in at one and please.
it make more sense if we sat here.
You guys bigger on Instagram or on Instagram? You see on Instagram live, right? Just get that option.
Very quality when we have it saved, so we can post it on our Instagram. Since we have the cards before. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khairan for joining us today. My name is Abdifatah Hussein from Hidaayah, and this is my brother, Shaykh Mamoun. Today we'll be speaking just a bit in regards to how do we navigate tough times as a Muslim. SubhanAllah, we're in an extremely tumultuous time, unlike the likes that we've seen in a while. But SubhanAllah, as an Ummah, people have come together, have come towards us, and have asked us many different questions in regard to how do I keep my Iman strong? How do I fight these feelings of powerlessness as I see the people of Palestine face a genocide on my screen day in and day out? What are the tools provided to me as a Muslim in navigating these sort of things? How do we organize? And most importantly, one of the most beautiful questions we've been asked is, how did the prophets, may Allah have mercy on all of them, how did they navigate these situations of oppression? How did Allah SWT preordain for us in the Quran and in dealing and navigating these situations? So we'll be having some conversations with that today. And Shaykh Mamoun, I'll take it from here.
Yeah, inshallah. Okay. So I guess really what I'll do is I'll just maybe just do a brief introduction and we'll just go back and forth, inshallah. So that works for you, inshallah. طيب ممتاز. فالحمد لله رب العالمين. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So, there's so much that can honestly be said that I think sometimes like these conversations that we're having, they're too tight, they're too small, and genuinely, honestly, what I think we would rather probably do is just really get to the question and answers. But it's really important for us to also kind of ground ourselves into why are we actually being tested as an ummah, and why our brothers and sisters all over the world, by the way, have been tested. It's just that this issue of Palestine and the occupation has been an issue that's been ongoing for such a long time that it is well documented, and it is also something that the other places where Muslims are being oppressed, there is some sort of denial, you know, saying from the actual state, whether it's we or brothers in China, for instance, China is literally denies what's actually happening there. But the thing is that the occupation in Palestine, and I'm just going to refer to it as that because I will never name it by what they think the name of it is, right? But it is an occupation. They are not even hiding the fact that they are an occupation. They're not even hiding the fact that they are treating our brothers and sisters or creating this apartheid state where legally that's actually what's happening there in Palestine, right? But I do want to go back because you referred to this before we started this talk here. I want to go back to a story that honestly has stuck in my mind ever since this started out, right? Which is the story what we talked about, which is the story of the king, the magician, and the young boy. And this is a story that the Prophet ﷺ himself has told us. So throughout the Islamic history, a lot of the way the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions and the Ummah, through that exchange itself, is by telling them stories. These stories were really, really important because they basically give you an idea of real things, right? Because stories are really important. And the story was is that there used to be this king, and this king used to have. And I always used to like when I was listening to the story and I'm listening to what's happening, like, oh my goodness, like every single element of the story you can actually relate it to something that's specifically happening right now. I can literally give it an actual name for it, right? So the story was that there used to be this king, this government, right? That was really, really oppressive, and they used to have a magician that used to help them in the ruling. So their intelligence services, really, if you want to refer to it as that, right? And the magician that this king used to employ in basically controlling the masses was getting old. So he asked the king to get him someone to help him, in a sense, so he can pass on this knowledge, right? So this job that he has can continue on and so on. So the king looks for like the smartest kid in the city and brings them, but it's a small little young boy, right? So he not really sure of how to distinguish between what's right and what's wrong. But as he's receiving this training, this boy, one of these days he runs into what the Prophet ﷺ has referred to as a rahib. Now, rahbaniya as a concept, just so you can understand what it is, are basically it's something that the Christians have come up with at a times when they were not allowed to practice Christianity. So it was one of the options that was given to them by the rulers at that time is when you do one of three things. It's either you leave us, we don't want the Christians amongst us, or you can convert to whatever religion it is, or the third option is for you to abstain from the people, to like just worship God however you want him to, but don't talk to people. Yeah, do not talk to people at all. Do not. But don't talk to the people and just kind of like let them be, right? And then what they did is that they came up with this whole idea of like sawma'ah. And the sawma'ah is basically like a place that you just sit in it as a rahib, you don't worship. It's kind of like monks right now, right? Like monks, basically they have no dealings with deen, they have no dealings with dunya, they don't get married, they don't really have jobs, so they just really do. So as this boy is walking back and forth between his home and his lessons with this magician, he runs into this the soma where the rahib is sitting, but he likes him. Like this is a righteous guy. He's happy to have him, and starts to learn from him a little bit about the religion, about deen, about Islam, about Allah, and so on, right? And he starts to learn some of his prayers, some of the adhkar, and so on and so forth. But the boy itself is going through this dilemma because it is a young boy where he's being taught all this evil through magic, but he's being sponsored by it. You know, imagine I always tell you like imagine getting a scholarship, right, for something that you know is going to give you good dunya, for sure. Because if he's the smartest kid in the city, because I say this because I need people to understand this.
The context there.
Yeah, if you're the smartest kid in the city, right, and like and then you're chosen to get a free scholarship to learn something with a guaranteed job at the end of it, like not just a job, the most powerful job that you can have.
Yeah.
You're basically the assistant to the actual king. This is an opportunity for dunya that you cannot really imagine, you cannot think of, right? So this young boy does is he's questioning these though, because he doesn't see this as the right thing to do. And what happens is one of these days, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him an opportunity, this young boy, to actually determine this. So what he says to him is, what happens is that as he's traveling, this young boy, walking from a part to another part of the city, he sees this big dabba. Now, the Prophet describes it as dabba. Dabba in Arabic language is basically any animal that walks on four or whatever, anything that's just kind of like close to it, but he was huge in size. And his dabba has blocked the road. Like nobody can move, nobody can get in and out, nobody can get out, none of that. And the boy sees it as an opportunity to now kind of have like istikhara. And I always talk about the story of like, because also it's also important for us as Muslims to be able to make this idea of istikhara, which is asking Allah, which one is good, which one is khair. Istikhara is basically istikhara. Linguistically means anytime you find that the alif, sin, and ta, right?
Mm-hmm.
That means asking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you say istikhara, that means you are seeking what's khair.
What's good.
Yeah, what's good for you, right? So he sees it as an opportunity, and he says, okay, you know what? I'm going to take this small little rock, and he says, as a dua to Allah, he says, oh Allah, if the matter of this rahib, this righteous man, is more beloved to you than this magician, then allow me to kill this animal and kind of help him. And he throws a small little rock, and the scholar says it's a really small rock that he could not have obviously damaged the. But Allah responds to him, and immediately this big dabba falls down the valley, and and everyone else is able to move back and forth. But now people start to know him. This is a guy who performs miracles. But then you also have to imagine the fact that this is the kid who's also been sent to learn magic. So there's two different things here. So people are confused. Is it magic? Is it this? Is it that? And then people start to go to him asking this young boy for favors. Oh, my kid is sick. I need some sort of help. And the boy, all he does is says, listen, I don't heal anyone, but if you want to believe, I'll make dua to Allah, and Allah basically will heal you. And people start to believe because you have nothing to lose. If you're going to somebody to seek anything like that, and the more people who come to him, the more they believe, and the believers start to increase and so on.
What's interesting is that specifically when they're in a moment of crisis,
Yep.
They're like, okay, we're at our end point here. We need help. This is a life or death situation.
Absolutely.
We'll take anything it is. And he had an option to choose: am I going to attribute it to my Lord or this magic?
Or himself. Yep.
Himself.
Or himself, right? In a sense, right?
Yeah.
But that's the whole idea of like a person who believes obviously would never ever
Exactly.
make that kind of claim. When he tells his teacher now the rahib about this, but the fact that he's starting to do all this work, the rahib immediately realizes one thing, which is really, really important. I think it also was the case for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to tell him, right? He said to him, "Ay bunay, innaka al-yawm khayrun minni." My young son, today you have become better than me. Okay, this is what he says. قال وإنك سوف تبتلى, and you are going to get tested. فإذا ابتليت, and if you get tested, don't tell people on me. So this rahib is scared. Is legitimately scared. Yeah, legitimately scared because he's not allowed to preach, he's not allowed to do any of these things, and he's scared that he's going to be punished. At this time, the king has this assistant who's with him, who's blind, and he hears about this boy, and he goes to him, and he says to him, gives him all these gifts like money, gold, whatever it is that he can get his hands on. It's a rich man, and as he's trying to convince this boy to heal him, the boy says to him, I don't heal anyone, it's my Lord who heals, and if you become a believer, I'll just make dua. If Allah wills, you can see. And again, when you have nothing to lose and you have everything to gain, you put your foot forward, right, and you kind of move on, right?
Yeah.
So this man becomes a believer. He says, okay, I'll believe, and the boy makes dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala heals immediately. But that cements the belief, right? Because now once this is done in front of you, now you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The test really starts at this point now because the king finds out that his assistant gotten some sort of help, right? And he asks him, who healed you? Who healed you? And the man says to him, my Lord healed me. So the king, in all his arrogance, he says to him, قال أولك رب غيري, you have a different Lord beside me. Like, how dare you? You say, my Lord, I am your Lord. And the word, like, I take care of you, right? And he punishes this man, and he punishes him until he tells about on the young boy. And now they take the young boy, and they spent money on this man. This is the scholarship that's been given to this guy. Yeah. So they don't want to kill him, but they need to know what's happening. And he brings him. He said to him, look at the magic that I've been teaching you. And the boy says, there's no magic. I just make dua to Allah, and Allah heals people for me. And he gets punished, and he gets punished, and he gets punished until he's a young boy. He tells on the Rahib. Remember, a while ago, the Rahib told him, don't tell on me. But the young boy, he can't really handle that kind of punishment, so he tells on. And the story here is the Prophet actually quotes this. He says they would bring a saw that would split the human being from the top to his toes, just so they can go back from the religion, and they wouldn't do it. Because once you believe in the haqq, you're good to go, right? And once you understand the fact that this life is coming to an end, and that you're going to be judged for everything else in the hereafter, you're okay with losing life, really, in a sense, for your cause, right? But they want this boy, which is the investment. They need him to go back from this nonsense, according to them, right? So they order him to be taken to this big mountain, and as he's taken to this big mountain, they say to him, if you don't go back from whatever it is that you're talking about now, we're going to throw you from this mountain. The boy makes a small dua to Allah, Oh Allah, protect me from them however you wish, or however you see fit. And the mountains shake, and everybody falls, but the boy comes back to the king, right? And then the king orders another thing, take him to the middle of the sea. If he doesn't go back, throw him in there. He makes the same dua, the boat shakes, everybody falls off this boat, and the boy comes back to the king, and then he gives him the final saying. He says to him, you're not going to be able to kill me unless you do the following. First of all, you take one of my arrows, and you say, and you pull the arrow. First of all, you gather all the people. This is a very important thing. And then you take one of my arrows, and then you say, Bismillah Rabbil Ghulam, in the name of Allah, the Lord of the young boy, and then you throw this, and then you can kill me. That's exactly what the king does. This boy sacrificing himself, show me exactly how to kill him. And then now when everyone sees this happening, they believe. Because everyone can tell the story. This guy, you haven't been able to force him back, but now they see the only way that you can kill this boy is by following him, so everybody believes in the boy's Lord, Allah. You see what I'm saying? So this is the test that we talk about one after one after one after one that believers actually go through all the time, even when you go through difficulties, right? The story actually ends, which is the story of, by the way, they talk about, it's not Sabab Nuzul, but it tells the story of Ashab al-Hudud, right? Where the king now, to make all these people leave Islam, leave religion, what he does is that he forces them. You want me to talk louder? Louder? I am very loud already. I'm going to bring this closer. Is this okay?
Yeah.
This is better. Okay. So now, when the boy dies and everyone sees him, they start to believe. And now the king wants to disperse these people from believing. So what he does is that he lights up all these big trenches of fire and throws anyone who believes in there. You have an option. So you go back from this religion that you're onto, or you die basically in this fire. And it's not like just like a small death, you burn yourself. And the story is that there's a young woman who comes with a baby of hers, and she's about to jump into the fire, but she gets scared. And then her baby speaks to her, and he says to her, Ya Ummah, isbiri ya Ummah, fa innaki ala al-haqq. It's like the basic thing, which is be patient, my mother. truly you are on the haqq. Which is really the moral of the story and the moral of even this talk that we talk about right now, right? So the fact that if you're on the haqq, you have no other option but to be patient. You have no other option but to be patient. But there are other things that you do as well when you're being patient, right? Like this boy here didn't hide. By the way, it would have been legitimately legal for him to outwardly convert,
Yeah.
right? And just pretend like, okay, fine, king, I'm with you.
No. Except for Allah SWT.
Exactly. Yeah, because you don't have to do it. Because there's a story of Ammar ibn Yasir, companion of the Prophet ﷺ, when his mother is being punished, being tortured, his father is being punished, being tortured. All the companions at the time, they were the weakest companions, they were the weakest people of the actual society itself, right? The companions came to the Prophet ﷺ, they were upset. قالوا أَيَسْأَلُ اللَّهَ لَنَا, are you not going to call Allah for us? Are you not going to make dua for us? Like, we're getting killed out here. You know what I'm saying? And the Prophet ﷺ responds to them, he says, back in the days, there used to be people they would literally be cut in two halves. Nobody would turn back from the religion. But when Ammar ibn Yasir, the only way he was being let go from that punishment, they told him, go ahead and curse the Prophet. So he did it.
Yeah.
And he came to the Prophet upset. I did something unthinkable. Yeah, I did something unthinkable. But the Prophet responds to him, he says to him, listen, if they do the same thing, do the same thing again. It's not a big deal because it's really, Iman is not about what you project outwardly when you're being pressured. It's not really what it's about, right? It's the actual belief itself that you actually have towards you. So this story, I like to tell it, especially in these times. I've told this every time there's an attack on Gaza. I always say, subhanAllah, the people of Gaza, the people of Palestine, they always remind me of this, right? Because there's like the kind of faith that you see coming out of that area. It's something that amazes me. Well, like every single time, right? And I always say because this, and I don't want to say this is just because of the people of Palestine, but I actually would say this generally about the people of the Sham. You know, Sham to me, like how Allah Subhanahu wa Taala talks about it as a land itself, right? Which is the area that's surrounding the Masjid al-Aqsa. الَّذِي بَارَكْنَا حَوْلَهُ. And Allah Subhanahu wa Taala said that we have blessed around it. One of my friends, one of my good friends in Shaykh Ahmad Shukri, he says this, you can see it, it's not just in their food that they actually have, but even in the type of people that they actually are. Yeah, the type of people that they actually, and obviously we're talking about the vast majority, not everybody, you know, there's always the exceptions to it, but the type of people that they actually are, the type of struggle, the fact that they're oftentimes going through these tests is a part of the fact that they're actually going through these lessons. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And one of the, I think, subhanAllah, that story is always beautiful for me. Jazakallah for sharing that again. Generally speaking, whenever we see people who are, and let's take it on a microcosm, like a smaller scale, when we have a family member who passes away, someone within community, someone who we love, like that is the ultimate reminder of why our iman is important, why our faith is important. The questions that we ask ourselves that we often take for granted of, where does this person who I was speaking to yesterday go after they die? Regardless of everything I've learned in the deen my whole life, this is a moment where you're now faced with, is this something I truly believe in or not? So a lot of people, subhanAllah, especially in this moment, day and age, when you're constantly seeing somebody pass away, young children being brutalized, and that's the word I use specifically, over and over and over again, it's something that could either build your iman or break it. And there's a specific level of powerlessness that a lot of people have shared sentiments with me and the Hidaayah House team of just, what do we do? I'm here at home, I'm watching through my screen, I see these people with their unyielding faith, with their belief in Allah SWT, getting ready for the next life. And it's a beautiful example every single time we see people of us doing this. But I'm constantly reminding others, but most importantly reminding myself that this level of powerlessness comes once we look at these organizing bodies, these governments, these people supporting and siding with a specific occupying state and an apartheid, and thinking to ourselves and almost forgetting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners. None of these things could have ever happened if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never meant for it to happen. And for those who have passed in this sort of manner, may Allah grant them the highest levels of Jannah. I mean, so there's many examples I've learned as I was growing up of different stories from Fir'aun to Musa alayhi salam and other examples, but is there any that specifically comes to mind to you when it comes to oppressive states and how the prophets have dealt with those things?
Yeah, so I actually just want to respond to one thing that you mentioned earlier here, which is the how do you protect your iman and so on, which I think this is to me is actually
Very important.
It's a very important thing. Many people don't understand, don't realize the fact that iman is the most precious thing that you have as a person. I use this example all the time, and I say, listen, I just bought this phone, and it was expensive. It was really expensive, right? But wallahi, before it got to me, I already had the case. I had purchased the case before the phone came to me, so I ordered it. The phone itself takes me 3-4 days, and it's not even like it's expensive, but it's not. It's still like a material, it's a dunya thing. You know what I mean? Like you can lose it, I can tomorrow go ahead and upgrade it, whatever it is that it works. But before the phone itself came to me from the company, I'd already purchased this from from Amazon. So I'm like waiting on the phone, the case with the case itself before, and that's because I realized like the value of it in terms of how I need to protect it, how I need to protect it. And the scholars, they always say that the most important thing that you have in yourself as a Muslim is your faith, is your deen, is your religion. And you have to protect. But religion itself is a thing, iman in a sense, is a thing that increases and decreases. Like this is a thing. So you shouldn't be scared of the fact that it goes up and down. The Prophet ﷺ, the very famous hadith in al-iman la yubla fi jawfi ahadikum ma yubla thawb. Iman becomes older inside of you, just the same as like a piece of cloth that you wear over and over and over and over. It gets old. And then the Prophet tells us how so ask Allah that He renews the iman in your hearts on a regular basis. But then the scholars also tell you how do you renew it. You don't just ask Allah and that's it. But iman is something that actually there is a formula for how it increases and how it decreases. Should we just ask them? Put them on the spot. Yeah, just guess. Yes. If you want to increase your iman, what happens? What do you do?
You get closer to Allah, like as in doing good deeds.
Yeah, but thought is as easy as it's actually a really easy concept. The scholars always say iman is something that is a part of your belief system, right? That is uttered with your tongue and that is cemented with your actions. You see what I'm saying? So you believe and then you repeat. That's why shahada is such an important thing for us as Muslims, right? And then you cement it with your actual actions, so your hands and your feet and so on. So they say to you, it increases with ta'at, with obedience, right? And decreases with ma'asi. And it decreases when you're actually getting to sinful actions. So if you want to increase your iman, all you have to do is as easy as that. I always tell you, like just increase from your salahs, increase from your after salah, do all these kinds of things that should be really, really easy for yourself. That should be really on a regular basis. You should just be doing anyways in order for you to be a believer, right? So once you increase that, it increases your actual iman. That's the first thing. The second thing that I think this is really important as well to say because I know some of you guys are quite young in Hidaayah house. You got to protect yourselves, man, from the images that are coming through social media and so on. It's really problematic. I know sometimes when we go through, like we see all these hardships, there's two feelings that we go through. One of them is that I have to consume so much of these images because I'm a part of the Ummah, so I have to feel the pain that they're feeling, right? But I think that's really problematic because all of a sudden, these are hard images. Like I know we feel like we're desensitized, but they're really hard. So they'll leave an effect on you. You'll be hurt. You will. For me, I've gone through some certain nights when I couldn't sleep. For instance, I'm just like scrolling. And then the other day, like just 2 days ago, I said, today I'm not gonna watch anything. And then when the nighttime came, I felt like guilty. They're almost going through all these things, and I'm not watching them. I'm not doing any of these things. But there's got to be a balance that you can strike, and everybody knows their own balance where you are. You should be able to stop yourself and say, "This is not helpful for me. It's not doing well for me. I'm just gonna stop watching this," and then just control the limits of where you are, so you can be mentally there. Actually, also the work. You see what I'm saying? The work is actually also needed for us to be able to do it.
I'll just say to that quickly too. It's interesting because we talked about the concept of burnout, right? But when you weigh it with this, and I appreciate the word you use, guilt.
Yeah.
it goes back and it ties into that powerlessness we were talking about earlier, where you're like, people are dying. They are being massacred with their families, subhanAllah, young children, women, men, all across the board every single day in incredible numbers. So who am I to not do these things? Who am I to not post? And I think again, there's a discernment, right? Between, do I have to share the images of a young body constantly dying for people to understand what's happening? Or is it just sharing information? Because that's the most important thing, right? We can't, and the people of Palestine have asked for this very explicitly as well, to make sure that that information is shared, to do the things that we possibly can to make people aware. But going back to it, everybody has a different role to play, right? I know some people who are extremely avid, and may Allah reward them, in going to protests, physically being in spaces, and they know their skill sets and being able to speak louder. I know others who have a gift of writing, subhanAllah, that Allah SWT has given to them, where they're able to write letters to not just their legislator, but to organize. I know others who are able to have conversations like me and you are having, and others who are intensely making salah and dua and all of those
And
different
that's
things, right?
important, right? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really crucial, yeah.
But I wanted to say, like, sometimes I feel like when it comes to that specific powerlessness, almost sometimes it comes almost like an afterthought, like, okay, I can't do this, I can't support with this, I guess I'll just make dua then.
Yeah.
I can't really do anything else. I'm just stuck here, so I guess I'll just pray salah, right? But subhanAllah, like, that is the most important and powerful thing that we can do. So I just wanted to have a conversation with you in terms of, like, how do we supplement, again, like, with the words that we are speaking, the actions that we're having, and the things that we're capable of doing.
So, I actually think this is really interesting that you say this, because this is not just when it comes to Palestine, right? But it comes to any issues, even in your lifetime. People always refer to dua as like the last thing. Like, I didn't study. Khalas, the exam is like half an hour left. My belly's hurting me. Yeah, I'm just gonna go in the corner and make dua. Well, it should have been the opposite, right? Like, before you even think of studying, you go and you make dua. You're like, listen, oh Allah, like I need your help. I need this. I need this. I need this and this. And Allah answers. This is one of the things that sometimes it honestly, to me, is such an amazing thing. Like, Allah actually answers. Like, it's so weird, you know what I mean? Because we pretend like He doesn't. Like, a lot of people pretend like He doesn't. But Allah actually answers. Like, the life that you're living right now, it's an answer of a dua of somebody. Like, whether it's your mom, whether it's your father, the fact that we are safe, the fact that you are healthy, the fact that you ate dinner, the fact that you had any one of these are answers of du'as of somebody. But you have to ask. Like, that's the thing, you know what I mean? Like, Umar al-Khattab has this very famous saying where he used to say, he says, I'm never concerned with the answer, but my most concern is that Allah gives me the inspiration to make dua. Like, at a moment when it's hardship, like things are going difficult, you think, okay, what's the first thing to do? Oh, make dua. That's the first thing that I do. You know, that's the most powerful thing that you can actually do. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallah, this is a weird thing that I always say to people. Like, it's so easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to change things. And we see it in history. Like, in the history. So, like, I even say, a couple of days ago, I was having a conversation with a young brother, and he was talking about, the occupying forces are just they're just, what do you call it? They're just khalas, it's the truth. Nothing. We can't get rid of this country anymore. It's there. And I said to him, I was like, do you know how many times Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa has been it has been flipped between between religions and so on. You know that this right now, the fact that we see this occupation force has been around since 1948. But how old is it now? 70 something years. 70 something years, right?
Yeah.
75 years, really? That's actually not a lot. In this, like, the scale of the size of Jerusalem and how long Jerusalem has been around, Palestine has been around. It's not really a lot at all. Like, we know, for instance, the Crusaders, this is the recent thing. The Crusaders ruled Jerusalem for more than 80 years. More than 80 years. And then Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi came, right? and then he basically, it's been brought back under the Islamic rule. But who talks about that now? 80 years is a long time. 80 years is a long, long time. I'll give you even the opposite side of this, right? Spain. How many years were the Muslims ruling Spain for? Does anybody know?
600, 800?
800 years. But now, when you go to Spain, do you see Muslims? Things can change. Like time is like Allah is so able to change things in ways that you yourself would be amazed at. You see what I'm saying to you? You just have to ask. And not asking Allah, I think, is insulting to Allah. Right? Like I always say, you think ill of Allah that you don't ask Him. The example that I always like to use as well is that if right now, for instance, you go ahead, pick up the phone and tweet at Elon Musk and be like, "Yo, can you just lend me like $1 million?" Right? I can do that right now, and he can give it to me. He has it. It won't matter to him. Like $1 million to that guy won't hurt him at all, will it? He won't even feel it. But I would never do that. Why wouldn't I do that? Why wouldn't I do that?
No response to you.
I have no confidence in the fact that he's going to do it. It's not going to respond. He's not going to do it. So the way I think of him is that he's not going to respond to me. He's not going to give me any of the money. So when you don't ask Allah, you're doing it the same way. Like, oh, Allah, I'm not going to ask him because he's not going to give it to me. Which is such an evil way to think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah is so much better than that. You see what I'm saying? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to you. Allah has been responding to you for so long of a time, right? So you have to be able to think of this whole dua as like it's not a last resort, it's an actual first, second, third, all the time kind of resort. It's actually the biggest weaponry that we have right now as Muslims as we speak itself. But you have to understand, but you also have to understand the fact that this dua has to come with some sort of obligations upon you, right? You have to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Strive to be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Increase from your istighfar, increase from your hasanat, from your good deeds and obedient deeds that you have to do. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to you, and this is how you do it, right?
Jazakallah khairan. And it's interesting when we make intentions and then we follow up with our speech and then inshallah continue along with our action, that in and of itself solidifies the building of our iman. That's right. And I feel a lot of the times like it's very easy to get into those conversations, but how do people find out and figure out solidifying that action? Because and subhanAllah, it's always beautiful for me, the reminders in the Sahabas and the parallels that we have to our own lives, how those Sahabas did things differently. How they all contributed to the success of the Ummah. How they all contributed to the propagation of Islam. How they supported the Prophet Muhammad SAW, but all of them did it differently.
Yeah.
Right? So how do, I guess, finding confidence in committing towards that action? If you have any stories.
Yeah. So I'll even use like stories from even now. Like so we know that the companions of the Prophet, everybody understood their role. Everybody understood their role. On the battlefield, for instance, nobody would come and speak to Khalid bin Walid. Right? Do you see what I'm saying to you? But when it came to time to leading Salah, Khalid bin Walid wasn't no one. You would bring one of the reciters of the Quran. You see what I'm saying to you? When it came time to understanding strategy and techniques and all that stuff, and when it came to the war, the Prophet first listened to Salman al-Farisi, right? When it came to guiding the Muslims and as a community and so on and so forth, we know the Prophet first asked his wives. Like everybody has a role. You see what I'm saying to you? And there's nothing better than understanding your own role and then just sticking to it. So you don't think. And I think honestly, it's been quite problematic nowadays, especially with the advance of like social media and so on, where we're trying to always mix up. There's a mix up in how our roles are supposed to be like. I always say to people, pretend like nobody's seeing you but Allah. What is the best thing that you can do for these people at this moment? You see what I'm saying? And once you do that, then you're able to actually stick to that role and you just do it on a regular basis. If you're a person who's capable of writing, write. If you're a person who's capable of organizing, go ahead and do it. If you're my daughter, she's a poet. I was like, somewhat of a, she likes poetry and stuff. Like, she's like, you know what? Go out there and come up with these chants and come on, you know what I mean? She's like, but I don't really want to I don't want to be like on the camera or whatever. I was like, fine, just write them and give them to them. You know, and you can come up with these things. And then, so you have all of these avenues that you can actually take to be able to be supportive of the actual cause. And you should always understand, like I'm telling you guys, again, you guys look young, so I know you guys don't see this the way it is. The tides are turning, yo. You guys have no idea. This 10 years ago, what's being said about the occupying forces right now in countries like Canada, in countries like the UK, in countries like the US, this was unheard of. 10 years ago, you could not. You wouldn't read. Like right now, you look right now and you'd be like, oh, the media is so wilding out. It was 10 times worse last year. We didn't even exist 10 years ago. Now at least they actually mentioned, oh yeah, 1,400 people got killed from this side, but and 6,000 people have been killed from this side. The 6,000 weren't even mentioned 10 years ago. They don't even count. We wouldn't even count as people. We weren't even anything. It was always the narrative was always on that side. The fact that we have now MPs and MPPs, senators in the US who are speaking out against the occupying forces, countries that are threatening Spain. Spain is one of the biggest enemies. It was one of the biggest enemies to Islam for a long time. They're the ones who are actually literally right now leading the actual charge into taking Benjamin Netanyahu to the actual to the international court. You see what I'm saying to you? Like they actually this is a criminal. Ireland, like I don't know who's whiter than Irish people, right? Like that's dumb. You know what I'm saying to you? But they're some of the most staunch people who are actually pro-Palestinians right now. You see these things and you're just like, you know what? Things are changing. And if they weren't changing, the occupying forces would not be so keen on shutting down the internet. They would be so keen on shutting down the communication web because they see it as a thing. It's a real thing for them. It bothers them and it hurts them. And they want to be a democracy. That's what they want to be perceived as a democracy. So democracy is all about perception. We all know this. Like I've given talks about democracy before and how terrible of a system it is, right? But it is all about perception. You see what I'm saying to you? So the moment we're able to actually expose people how they're and change the way people see things, how they actually are, it's a war of narratives. There's no doubt in my mind about it, right? So just literally a war of narrative. Things will become the way it is. And I'll say this, I hate to say it when we're streaming, but go past this whole idea of like we want peace. We don't want peace. Like I always say, like this whole idea. We want freedom to our brothers and sisters. Like this peace without freedom is meaningless to us. You see what I'm saying to you? Like I can put my foot on your neck and you can be peacefully on down there. Well, how long is it gonna last for? You see what I'm saying to you? We don't want this. We want your foot off my neck. This is the thing. This is it. We want a state for our brothers and sisters that they can actually live in it by themselves peacefully. They can make their own determination where they can live out their whole lives. If that's not there, what are we gonna do with peace? People might as well die, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like people might as well just die and go to Jannah than to live in this kind of like madalla, this kind of like dishonorable way of living. You know what I'm saying? Just always being afraid, being stopped everywhere you go. I've been to Palestine, man, and it is I can't. 5 days, I was so irritated. I could have hurt somebody. You know what I'm saying to you? Like I was like irritated, like the thing. And even though I know I could live, but just the fact that they could stop you anywhere. That like I was born, like if you were born and raised there in a place where you just get stopped in front of your house, you go into the masjid, you get stopped, it's nonsense. This cannot be a life. This can't go on. Like it cannot go on. It has to stop. It's a done deal for us. And we stand with the Palestinian people, regardless of without any condemnation for any action that they have, because you cannot condemn somebody. You see what I'm saying to you? Who without understanding their context. And I'm really sorry if this becomes political, but it shouldn't be the thing, right?
It's fine. Hold
on, and this is my opinion. It has nothing to do with the actual masjid that we're in. So if you know, yeah.
Exactly for sharing my opinion as well. But we are again specifically in a place where, and again, I'm speaking from what I've seen of the people of Palestine. Right? They're in a position where they're dying, they're grieving their loved ones, and their iman is just getting stronger each time. They're looking death in the face every day. They are constantly waking up to more people who they love being slaughtered, everything being shut down from the hospitals to now the media, digital communication, and the iman is just getting stronger and stronger, subhanAllah. and it is building our iman. I had a brother who came to me yesterday speaking to me for the first time in his life, a non-Muslim brother, he's Hindu, asking me about the deen, asking me like, when I see you all praying together for the people of Palestine, when I see you making dua for them, I'm thinking to myself, how are you so emotionally connected to people across the world, right? This is something I've never felt before. And I want to understand, how does Islam give you all that peace? So even when it comes to grieving, and grieving is something that we've dedicated a lot of time and energy to in the Hidaayah house, and understanding how do we support each other when we grieve. How did the Prophet Muhammad SAW grieve? How did Allah SWT support him while he was grieving? What is our understanding of our loved ones who visually and literally are not with us anymore, but believing that we can see them in the next world and increasing their ranks in the next world? Just generally speaking, again, like, how do we as Muslims use this grief as something that can push us, inshallah, towards how do we use this grief as something that can push us towards increasing our iman, as opposed to the opposite, which we often see happening as well, where it leads to more of a shutdown of someone's iman.
Yeah, I think it's really important for us to understand, like, and this is just a basic rule within the Islamic religion, right? The fact that this dunya is coming to an end. Like, it's just like, this is like anything that happens to you in this dunya. So your religion is not an actual basis of how valuable you are in this dunya. Does this make sense as a statement? Just because you're a Muslim doesn't mean you have to be strong in this dunya. It's good if you are, but it's not an automatic thing that Allah gives to you. You have to be the conqueror, or you have to be the richest, or you have to be the strongest physical body, or you have to be any of these things. We practice Islam to elevate our ranks in the hereafter, never for this dunya. And this is a really, really crucial thing in this age of social media. I think it's gone really problematic, right? Where it's always about the way things look, it's always about what's shown, and therefore everything has just become, it has to be tangible for us here in order for us to kind of evaluate in terms of the religion, right? But no, we practice our religion so we can reach a higher rank in the hereafter. Now imagine if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses for you to go to Jannah without having to do much of the work. I always say like 6,000, what are the numbers? I was just reading to it this morning. I think about 1,400 of those who've been killed have been children. So Allahu Akbar, like kids in Jannah. You see what I'm saying? Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately chooses for you to just take your child and go to Jannah. You know what I'm saying? I think that right now, for myself, as my children are alive, as my kids are going through puberty and so on, I struggle with my kids. I struggle with them. I know they're 14, 15 years old, like getting into that life. How am I going to save my kids from the hellfire? How will I save my kids from the hellfire when everything surrounding them is just literally calling to the hellfire, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chooses to take the child away from you. You see what I'm saying to you? And you think of the fact that, oh, he's going to go straight to Jannah. He's not responsible for his actions. Doesn't matter what he did as a child. This is a pure child who's going to go straight to Jannah, right? And this is a beautiful reminder that we always have to have in the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the very famous hadith from the Prophet that says, if Allah wants good for someone, and this person's deeds just don't elevate him to that goodness. Like Allah wants you to be in the first highest of Jannahs. But you're just a regular Muslim, you do your 5 salahs, like it's nice. It's not like you're not there yet. So what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do? What does he do?
Brings you calamity.
Yeah, he throws at you diseases, he throws at you sicknesses, he throws at you death of your children, he throws at you all these things, right? And as all these things are happening to you, you're responding in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he increases you. You're not doing much work, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you all of these things that is happening. And this happens to the whole of the Ummah, my brothers and respected sisters. You see what I'm saying? It happens all the time. I'm telling you right now, whether they're the genocides that have happened to the brothers in Bosnia during the times, right? Whether the civil war in Somalia, whether the wars that are happening in all over the Muslim world. You see what I'm saying to you? The 1.5 million Iraqis that have been killed for weapons of mass destruction. You see what I'm saying to you? All of these, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala selects and chooses and takes people to Jannah, subhanAllah, and we have no understanding, because our main compass of understanding why things happen, why do bad things happen, is based on dunya. It's not. it really is not, right? Bad things that happen in dunya are meaningless. They're meaningless. They don't mean anything. They're just, it's literally a step that happens from a place to a place. Um, one of my Shaykh, Shaykh Jafar, I heard him a long, long time ago. He used to say, he says when you're upset about something in dunya, it's like you're traveling on a bus and you come to a rest stop and you find that the bathroom is closed. But you have to, like, you really have to go. You understand what I'm saying to you? But you become so upset, it ruins the whole trip for you, right? Because it's just such a small part. You're literally just on this bus until you get to this place and to another place. But when you get to the house, it doesn't matter the difficulties, it doesn't matter the hardship, it doesn't matter anything else. You're home. You're home. You see what I'm saying to you? So you have to think about life in that sense as well. You have to think about the fact that your tests are going through that. And grieving is important. It's a natural thing. The Prophet, when he lost his wife, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, lost his grandfather, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, lost his uncle, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These were difficult times for him, alayhi salatu wasalam, right? Because those were his support system, right? But he moved on and he kept working. He kept working. And if you want a perfect example of how quickly things change when you work sincerely for the sake of Allah, you just think of the story of the Prophet. The Prophet lived with Islam for 23 years. Almost 10, the first 10, he couldn't do anything. He was in Mecca, the first 10. Couldn't do much at all, right? So literally the growth of the fact that he became a recognized religion to the point where it was almost what? Attacking the Roman Empire. That's unheard of. You see what I'm saying? It's unheard of. Like, Arabs would not have been able to not even dream of this. Within 10 years, like, didn't discover no atomic bombs, didn't do anything else, just got Islam. That's all that happened. He got Islam, and just the Prophet became politically involved in the fact that he wants to make a change for the world to the better, because Islam is the way to go for every single human being. You see what I'm saying? So then all of a sudden, things started to move. 10 years, my brothers, is that a lot of time? That's nothing. Like in the grand scheme of things, nothing. You guys, were you around when September 11th happened? Were you around? Like, were you grown? Were you old enough? No, you were too young, right? You weren't born yet. You were not. Were you?
I was born. I was young.
Or were you?
I was born. Yeah.
But you were just born.
No. 10 years. I was 10 years.
10 years is nothing. I was finishing my university. Like, I was literally like, that's nothing. But that's what I'm saying to you. I remember these, and that's like, it seems to people like a long time ago, but the world has changed drastically for Muslims, right? At that time, right? And you guys wouldn't notice it, but the way things have changed. And one of the biggest things that I used to always remember when it came to this, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, but when September 11th happened, and all the attacks were happening towards Muslims, you're old enough to remember these things. Every masjid I went to, there was like white people coming in to accept Islam. This is so weird. Like, you guys should be hating on us right now at this point here. But sincere people coming to Islam, like just people, I heard about Islam. This is, you guys don't know. This is pre-Google, we used to have something called Ask Chiefs. You guys know AskChiefs.com? You guys don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, people couldn't even find things about Islam online like that. There weren't books in English. I remember at that masjid, like, to give people, like, we used to just like print out papers to give to people about Islam and stuff like that. We didn't have any of these things. We just didn't invest in like that one, like nowadays, right? So after September 11th, white people just kept coming to the masjid. We want to learn about Islam. Oh, I like this. I want to become a Muslim. And then, which to make it even weirder for me, and I'm telling you, I used to contemplate this all the time. To make it even weirder is that everybody used to always talk about the Taliban and how they're oppressive to women and how Islam is oppressive to Muslims, and we used to have all these Muslim women who come on TV, like there's a Sudanese lady, may Allah forgive her, the Somali lady, may Allah forgive her, this other Afghani lady as well. They're Muslim sisters, right? But they were so anti-Islam. They were so anti-Islam. They come on TV, yeah, Islam tells them to do this about Muslims. Yeah, Islam. And all of a sudden, I seen all these white ladies coming in also wanting to accept Islam. This is such a strange thing. Like, this shouldn't be happening. It made no sense to us. But once the haqq starts to get exposed, sincere people just genuinely flock to it. It's as easy as that, right? And this is the whole point of when this boy here, for instance, he said, just bring the people and kill me in front of them. You see what I'm saying to you? Like, I always saw, like, the perfect example is the fact that this young boy here came to the king and said, then kill me in front of them, and everybody else became Muslim. Because of what we, in this dunya, we would consider something bad, right? Like the death of a young child, it's such a problematic thing, right? But then everybody else became Muslim. Even when Musa alayhi salam, in this big debate with Fir'aun, he asked them, like, the debate is like, what are you going to do? Like, bring your best magicians and bring this. So Musa said, okay, our appointment is Yom Zina used to be like this big, huge market that they would set up, like a bazaar, right? Everybody from everywhere in Egypt, they would come and they would watch, right? And then they would call him to the stage because Fir'aun, what does he want to do? He wants to embarrass him. So he calls everybody. He calls the best of magicians. Like, you know what I'm saying to you? And Musa doesn't do anything. Like, it's not good. It's not like being flashy or anything about it. Just, who wants to go first? You guys go first. You're comfortable with it. Like, you give us your views right now. Okay, first, your opinions. And then, okay, well, this is what you can do. Well, here's what I can do. And he throws his staff, alayhi salam. And it's not magic. It literally becomes an actual snake, right? Like, it's not like he was like trying to magically confuse people like the magicians. And magicians who do this for a living, they can tell this is not magic, bro. Like, we know magic. Like, this is how it happens. You know, we just messed around and stuff, and then it starts to eat all of everything else that they actually know. No, this is not magic. So they immediately become what? They became Muslims immediately. The magicians, which are the worst people at that time, right? Because they came to get money and stuff. But when you see the haqq, sincere people always flock to it. I always say to people like this. So when we say right now, our brothers and respect this, all we gotta do is expose the haqq. All we gotta do is just expose the haqq. Speak about the fact that Islam calls for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is what it calls for. It's easy, it's as basic as that. The reason why we stand with our Muslim brothers and sisters is because 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It doesn't matter what CNN, CBC, whatever they're saying, it means nothing. It means absolutely nothing because sincere people, again, will flock to the haqq regardless of what it is. Sorry. Come on, such a long rant.
Jazakallah khair. This is what we're here for. May Allah reward you for sharing this knowledge as well. I mean, we are again in a specific time and place in our lives, and this is going to be something where I know for a fact a decade, 2 decades down the line, we'll be able to reflect and ask ourselves in this historical moment, how was I feeling? How did my environment look like? And was I myself upon the haqq? Was I somebody who was sincerely trying my best to strive towards Allah SWT, understand the world that I live in, conceptualize it through the deen that I was given, and was I following in the path of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? And these are not things that, and I have this conversation a lot of times with my friends, but majority with family, where we ask ourselves, when it comes to doing the right thing, for the most part, we feel like this is an intrinsic human nature. We just know what's right. If we see an injustice towards us, an injustice is something that it doesn't matter whether you're Muslim or not. An injustice is an injustice. If you see it, you know it. But how do you respond to it? How do you put yourself into a position where I say, this is how I strategize? And as Muslims, subhanAllah, this haqq that we were given, this way of life, this is the template that we were blessed with. Allah SWT has given to us in numerous examples and parallels within the Quran. From the story that you spoke about this young boy, to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, to the ways that they conducted themselves. We were given the template. And again, it's about now. Why would we implement it if we haven't built the foundations of our iman? How do we strive towards doing that slowly and with sabr, right? And how do we conceptualize all of those things and then at the last stage develop it into our action? So we're weak, we're humans, and iman fluctuates up and down always, from the smallest of things to the greatest of things. Some people, when I say some people, I speak about myself, you can face a small challenge and your iman will decrease. And you can have a small blessing and subhanAllah, you're shocked at the blessings that Allah SWT has given you, right? But as an ummah, how do we support each other when we see each other falling through those hard times? How do we look at each other and say, okay, this person is going through a rough time right now. They may not have the capacity to pick themselves up and process the things that I'm able to process right now. And how do we support each other? And it's with small conversations like this. It's with reminders from the Quran. is from asking your brothers who are more senior than you, who have more knowledge than you, and from looking at the actions of those who are delivering those actions with intention and sincerity. So may Allah purify our intentions always. I mean, may Allah put us into a position in our lives where we are able to stand before Allah SWT and be tested and be confident in our answers, that we tried our absolute best. And Jazakallah khairan.
I just have one thing to say,
Please.
inshallah. Don't forget, like a really crucial point that I think many of us forget about, which is compassion. Compassion in the way that you're dealing with your enemies, and also the way that who are actually not on the right side of the truth right now, right? This is really easy for us to get caught up in, because nowadays many of the conversations that are being had, they're being had behind screens. So you're able to be rude, you're able to be mean. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to. But I always say, like always think of the fact that the person you're speaking to on the other side is a person, is a real human being. You see what I'm saying to you? So whether you're actually posting things, whether you're calling somebody to Islam, like, compassion has to be on top of this. I am doing this because I want to save you, genuinely want to save you from committing this error in your life, you know what I'm saying, from going to hellfire. This is a really important thing. Prophet used to love the fact that when people come to him and become rough with him, he would look into what's going on through them. You see what I'm saying to you? When the young boy comes to him and he says, "Oh, Prophet of Allah, allow me to commit adultery." You see what I'm saying to you? Like, this is the question that they asked him, right? And the Prophet didn't get angry about him. It's like, he made dua for him. You see what I'm like? Immediately he makes dua for him. So, and this is something that's unheard of right now. No young person would come and would ask anyone this, because they'd be afraid of the consequences, right? The judgmental state of mind that we've become in as Muslims, right? Where even when it comes to Muslims, we don't think well of them. We don't think well of other Muslims at times, right? We're like, this guy is too liberal, this guy is too conservative, this guy is too this guy is too this guy is too. All you have to think about is, this guy is not on the same path as mine. May Allah bring us both to the right path. This doesn't mean that you're actually agreeing his way is right. You see what I'm saying to you? It just places him in a human position. He got information that you don't have, or you have information that he doesn't have. In order for that to actually it's literally what it is, by the way. Like, every single difference in this world between Christianity, Judaism, Islam, is about information that wasn't related correctly or accurately, or didn't reach in the first place. So once you have that kind of conversation, it'll start to reach.
Even the Sahabas, when they never had the information.
Absolutely. And they differed amongst themselves as well, right? Like the companions of the Prophet different in so many different ways. I mean, right now we have 4 madahib. You know what I'm saying to you? In ways like the way we fight right now amongst our madahib. The imams didn't do this. I got really yelled at one time. So I'm Sudanese. I'm telling you guys this really funny story, so we can end it with. I'm Sudanese, and Sudan were Malikiya. Most of them are. So Malikiya is a very easy thing. We don't pray any rak'ahs after Jummah. Jummah is like, pray Jummah, you're done. You're not actually allowed at all, right? But I studied in Canada and Saudi. So my Shaykh here, for instance, was Hanafi in a sense, and in Saudi Arabia was a Hanabila. And it's an easier thing than that. So I went to Sudan to visit, and as soon as Jummah was done, everybody was saying goodbye. Assalamu alaikum, I stood. And immediately this older Shaykh comes up and smacks me upside the head. Like, not like lightly, like hard, like wanted to punish me. Like, what kind of person prays after Jummah? You see what I'm saying to you? And I was a young guy, right? I just hated that guy. Immediately, just because I had despised him, I would never go into this masjid again, none of these. And all because he thought he was going to teach me. You see what I'm saying to you? But that information stuff could have just been transferred so much easier, in such a softer way. So don't attack. Don't respond to people who are attacking as well either, because they're not in a state of mind of actually receiving any sort of information.
Actually, even just to that, with the work we do at Hidaayah House, I had to genuinely learn and study and read up on what is the Islamic science of giving nasiha. How do we appropriately give advice? Because I myself know how I receive advice first. If somebody yells at me, I'm not listening to them.
Yeah, you shut down. Yeah.
I shut down. And the Prophet ﷺ, for some people, he would address them directly. He would tell them, this is wrong, don't do it again. For others, he would advise other people to advise them, because he knew their shyness towards them. For others, he would take them to different environments. For others, he would be patient with them and shows through his actions, right? So even when it comes to difference of opinions, when we are upset with people, remember that the fact that, again, we were given that information, like you mentioned, in and of itself, didn't come from any hard work from us. Allah SWT blessed us with it. And may Allah bless everybody else with that as well, inshallah.
And approach every single conversation as if you want to learn as well. Well, this is a really important thing. Approach it as if you want to learn. So ask questions more than like give directions. So ask questions. Well, what do you think of this? Well, what about this? But I have information this happens. So how can you consolidate these two things? When anybody sees the fact that you're genuinely trying to learn, it'll be easy. All of a sudden they become soft and they'll start to, okay, well, this guy actually giving back and forth with me, let's do it. Allah will win so many different people to our side when it comes to this. This is a real issue that's going to go on for a long time. I'm telling you guys, my brothers and respect, this is like, I was speaking to one of the brothers from NCCM just a couple of days ago. He's saying this is like the September 11th that has happened, that the events that are happening right now for us, these are going to be changing the way things are for a long, long time for Muslims in this country and in the West overall. It's going to be a real thing. And just the occupying forces, just a couple of days ago, they're saying we're ready to go into war for 10 more years. 10 more years. This is the way that these guys are thinking about, right? We know that the Iraqi war lasted close to 20 years, the Iraqi war. 20 years destroyed these countries. I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this war here will destroy the occupying forces and they would just leave, right? We don't have a problem with the Jewish people as an actual community. As a matter of fact, a lot of them are our friends. They're on our side. But this ideology of Zionism has to end. This whole idea of occupying people's lands has to end. Everybody has to have their due rights. We do not, again, I'll say this, we do not want peace without justice. It's meaningless to us. We don't have to cease fire. But if there's no peace, if there's no justice, what's the need of a peace?
Jazakallah khairan. And again, these are
Our opinion, yes.
Yes, these are our opinions, of course. But more importantly than that, specifically again, like this is an example that Allah SWT has given us. And the examples that He gives us, the tests that He shows us other people are going through, none of these are accidental. All of these were preordained, not just for the people of Palestine, but for us ourselves as Muslims observing this. How do we navigate these situations? Specifically, knowing that conflict, knowing that tragedies are the things that make us into better Muslims, are the things that make us to people that are promised into Jannah. So being intentional in learning. And again, if you have any questions, your first source of finding those answers should be within the Quran. It should be. I can't even count how many times I've just opened a page and it's related to exactly what I was going through in that exact moment, but it's specifically because I was looking for those answers within the Quran. So if you don't have any understanding of context as well, feel free to reach out to us and we can connect you with those of the people of knowledge, inshallah. But Jazakallah khair for everyone who tuned in. We'll be making sure to save this or record.
What time do they pray also?
4:30, inshallah. So we're going to wrap up now. Can you close this off with some du'as?
Inshallah. اللهم لك الحمد اللهم لك الحمد اللهم لك الحمد نحمدك ونشكرك على ما أعطيت وعلى ما منعت اللهم إنا نحمدك ونشكرك على كل ما أعطيتنا وما منعت اللهم لك الحمد اللهم لك الحمد اللهم لك الحمد. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our families and those who are suffering in Palestine. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow them victory. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have mercy upon those who have passed away. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to heal those who are hurt. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to heal them, to bring tranquility to their hearts, to bring victory to them. And I give them glad tidings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised those who are fighting for the cause of the Jannah bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to gather them all with those whom they love in the dunya and in the hereafter. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us all to be able to stand for the haqq, for the truth. And to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to see justice in those lands before we leave, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.
Ameen. Jazakallah khairan. Sorry.
Can also fight back too.
Absolutely.
In a peace way.
Yeah.
There is companies that they support them. We have to boycott them.
Yes.
$1 you want to be spent on their stores that going 50 cents to the Israelis to kill our brothers. We should fight back peacefully. Boycott Walmart, boycott Starbucks, boycott McDonald's. All these companies, they are supporting him. Let's leave.
So many different ways.
Yeah. So boycott is another big, strong weapon.
Yeah.
You know, the Danish king, when Muslim, they boycott their products, he ran away to Saudi.